evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Real Talk here on Baobab Chats, and I'll be your host, Thandiwe. So the Real Talk is a brand new show that focuses on issues that are happening in our societies around the world. So our aim is to bring to light those issues and how we can identify and solve the problems that we are currently facing in the society. So today, this month, we are celebrating the Human Rights Month in South Africa, the month of March. So my team in Global Chat decided to run a series of shows that focuses on human rights and the violation of human rights. So this week we have decided to start with a very sensitive and interesting topic. The topic of child abuse. And in my panel today, I've got Taiwo from Nigeria. She's a career guidance, and she's going to help us with this discussion and to find out how we can identify and solve the issues of child abuse in our societies. Taiwo, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Thandiwe. Thanks for having me. It's evening in this part of the world, so good evening, viewers. My name is Taiwo Adeyemi. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm a guidance counselor and I deal with young adults, teenagers, children, and even parents. It's a privilege to be on the show, of course, discussing a very predominant topic, and I don't take it for granted. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Taiwo, and it's a pleasure to have you also on the show.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Real Talk here on Baobab platform. And I will be your host, Thandiwe. So, Real Talk is a brand new show that focuses on real life issues as we experience them in the different societies of the world that we are in. And this show will be running every Thursday here at 9:30, and I will be hosting the show, yours truly. So this month, we in South Africa are celebrating the month of human rights. So my team at Baobab Chats have decided to run a series of shows that focuses on discussions surrounding human rights. So this week on the first episode, we have decided to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves when it comes to human rights. And we have decided to tackle the issue of child abuse. And in my panel today, I have Taiwo from Nigeria. She's a very experienced career guidance counselor. Taiwo, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, Thandiwe. Good evening. It's evening in this part of the world. Thank you for having me. My name is Taiwo Adeyemi. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a guidance counselor and I deal with children, young adults, teenagers, and even parents. It's such a privilege to be on the show with you discussing this topic, child abuse. Thank you so much for having me once again.
You're welcome, Taiwo. Okay, so broadly speaking, when we look at the concept of human rights, we are talking about the moral conducts of human behavior. And when we look at it and how it has been legislated, we look at the common laws that are found in different regions of the world. We look at different cultural backgrounds. We look at different religions. So, but the aspect itself, the concept itself, has been a subject of interest from as way back as so many years, and it has drawn the attention of so many influential people, such as Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X, all those people, they were advocates for human rights. But what is said is that until today we are living in a society whereby these rights are still violated. And like about a month ago, there was a video that was circulating on social media in South Africa about it was about a child who was being brutally beaten by the only person in this whole world who is supposed to care and love for her, that is your mother. She was beating her allegedly because the father had abandoned both of them and was not taking care of them financially. So she was putting all those frustration on the child. So as adults, I know when we all saw that video, we're all prompted to take action. And I believe it's time that we do something in the society. And imagine that such abuse that we saw is happening in 1 in 7 children that we know around the world. So I think as adults, it's our responsibility to start looking at these things and start tackling such issues. So Taiwo, what are your general views when it comes to child abuse, and what do you think are the causes of child abuse in our societies?
Yeah, so when we talk about child abuse, we have to give it a platform. And I like where you started off by saying we're talking about people who cannot talk for themselves, people who cannot speak for themselves in society. Usually, children below the age of 2 to 17 that are violated, maltreated, and maybe neglected are this category of people that we're going to focus on today, right? And when we talk of child abuse, we're talking about, like I read it, I saw the statistics that every year 1 billion children between the age of 2 to 17 are being abused on a yearly basis. And then we're asking and we are wondering, so what happens? What becomes of these children when they get advanced? Okay,
Exactly.
when they become adults, these are people who are breathing to the society. And what happens when their childhood is already tampered by maltreatment, by neglect, by parents and caregivers? These are people we look up to, that are supposed to serve as role models for the children. But in this case, there are no roles, there are no models, there's nothing that is worth looking up to. And it's a menace to the society. And for a society like ours in Africa, it's a predominant conversation. We need to have this conversation. And talking about the cause of child abuse, there are so many, like it's a broad subject. It's a very
Exactly,
broad
yeah.
subject. Yeah, so we should consider it first from the background. And I will first say one of the predominant cause of maltreating a child is unwanted or unintended pregnancy by maybe a teenager. Okay, so that video you saw that surfaced on the internet, probably as at the time that child was born, that child was not needed in that family.
Exactly. It
You
was an
understand that?
unwanted child, an unwanted pregnancy, a result of
Eh,
an unwanted circumstance. So does the
exactly.
child really have to suffer because this was not his or her calling to be in this world? So what really should we do? How do we identify it within our circles?
So I want to strongly believe that as adults we should begin to take responsibility for our own self and for the persons around us. So when a female child is growing up at age 12, 13, 14, 15, and is beginning to keep unhealthy relationships, for instance, because unintended pregnancy is just one out of numerous causes why children are daily being abused. So I advocate for it, because as a guidance counselor I talk to teenagers, and I strongly advocate that we should encourage both male and female from a very early age, okay, to take responsibility for their relationships. So it doesn't happen that something happens and we can't explain, and somehow
Exactly.
it becomes like a pregnancy sets in, and then we can't
And
we can't talk about it, and there's already frustration even from the family.
Yes, and I think it's all of it is upon the girl child, because we are the ones that carry these pregnancies at the end of the day. But the relationship was for both the male and the female. But at the end of the day, we are going to be living with these children. We are going to be abandoned with these children in an extra burden. And I think in Africa now, because of poverty, we are so struggling to take care of ourselves, even without even having to think about our careers or about our futures or about any investment. So our focus is basically on feeding what we have to do today, and feeding the body that works today. We don't think of tomorrow. So we look at a child as a burden more of as a gift
As a
that is coming to
blessing.
us, as a
Exactly.
blessing.
Exactly.
And like there is this conception of saying in Africa we are generally traditional people. So the way we discipline our children is probably regarded as actually abuse in other parts of the world like Europe. So where do we draw the line here to say this is abuse? There's a comment from Sten and Steffi there to say, where do you draw the line to say this is now abuse? Because when I was growing up, my mother used to smack me almost on a daily basis. And to me, I still regard it as abuse, because I'm not supposed, you should have spoken to me, because I'm an adult. I'm a human being. I mean, sorry. So I can have a conversation with you and tell you that, and if you tell me that what I did is wrong, then tomorrow I'll think about it, and then when I'm about to do the same offense, then I will remember that
Okay.
I'm not gonna do this because of my mom. So it will be out of respect, not out of fear. So where do we draw the line, Taiwo, to say this is abuse and this is discipline?
Okay, so that question is quite dicey, because as for me, I grew up in that atmosphere of, I wouldn't utterly call it maltreatment, but there are days my I don't know if I should be saying this on air, but my dad
I say this.
really my
My
dad
mom is
has this
watching.
whip. In Nigeria it is called koboko. So it's a horse, it's made from horse tail, and then he hangs it in a strategic part of the house. So when you're doing something bad, my mom just points your attention to the whip, and then you're like, this one is going
You
to land on
already
your
know.
back.
Without
Exactly,
anything, you
at
already know.
any point of the day, yeah. But at that time, we saw this as a growth process, and that was what
Exactly.
made us to be who we are. The disciplined Taiwo that I am today came from my roots. Okay, it came from that fact. I know that if I do something messy, my father is waiting for me to do, to correct me and to discipline me. But when we discover that some of these things do not actually change character. It doesn't in fact, in most situations, it doesn't bend the character to be good. Rather, when a child start getting used to a physical assault, for instance, physical maltreatment, physical violence, and it now begins to sound like, after all, it's just cane, they will flog me and I can endure it. And when the body begins to build resistance to such kind of punishment, then it's already an abuse. Because for this child, who, whatever happens, he or she already knows that when I step out, when I come out, my dad is just going to beat me, and that's all. So I feel like, as adults, as parents, and as intending parents, we should begin to look at other correctional measures, so that it doesn't
Exactly.
become an abuse. And I also want to state, for the purpose of this conversation, that physical abuse child abuse is not limited to physical maltreatment. A
True,
child
true,
can be
true.
neglected, and that is a form of abuse.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to say that, from my days as a toddler, from my education as a toddler, even to the adult that I am now, there was one thing I didn't suffer, and that is paying tuition fees, paying school fees. Okay, so I know that I may not have privilege to get any other thing in the course of the school duration, but you see that school fees and books, my dad is going to hustle that money and pay. There are children who live with both parents, and because as a rate of poverty, they can't even afford to pay, such money even in the school. So that child doesn't even have access to good food, doesn't have access to good education, doesn't have access to a good lifestyle. That is a form of abuse on that child, because these things can trigger children to become
Exactly.
menace to the society. Yeah, so I think that we should also look at neglect as a form of abuse.
Exactly. Because as a child, all you think about is love and being loved. To you, the whole world is a fairy tale, and you just need someone to be there for you, to show you that this is the way, because your mind is blank. Whatever comes
Sure.
in is being fed in by other people. And
Yeah,
it has got short-term and long-term consequences. We are growing up today with broken adults who are failing to heal from the pain that they
exactly.
have suffered at the hands of their parents. So this chain is a continuous chain, and uh, when a child is growing up under those circumstances of abuse, they tend to be defensive. They tend to be defensive, or like sort of violent. They will tend to be like sort of violent to people that don't understand them, and they tend to be objective, people that don't have feelings. But when you sometimes you can talk to someone and you think this person doesn't love me back, not knowing that they do love you, but they don't know how to love because they were never
Express it.
taught how to love.
Exactly.
So, what would you consider as the short-term and the long-term consequences of such treatment as a child? And what
I
what
feel
what 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 what, what are the disadvantages on the development of the child himself or herself?
I feel like cases of abuse always have a long-term effect on anybody. Anybody. If you've been abused as a child, the effect will not even be, say, 2 3 months from now. It's going to be way longer, say 5 years. In fact, sometimes in some cases you don't get to correct them for life. You don't get to correct them for life, because okay, I want to also talk about bullying as a form of abuse. We've mentioned maltreatment, we've mentioned neglect. Bullying as a child, imagine that a child even probably gets maybe little amount of love from home, okay, but gets out, and because he or she sounds in a kind of way, or doesn't meet to a particular societal expectation, his mate sees him differently, and this child is just curved up in one corner and can't do things that
Exactly.
others can do. Do you understand?
And
This
lose
child gets to
self-esteem.
live with, this child struggles with his self-esteem. He struggles. That's like an eternal damage that cannot be repaired.
It
Do
cannot
you
be replaced,
understand?
and the wounds are
Exactly.
so difficult to heal as you grow up, because
Exactly.
it's engineered within your foundations as you grow as a child. And I don't think that we take this issue as seriously as we should, because when it comes to child abuse, it, you have to know that as an adult, it's your responsibility first of all to identify these things, because a child is growing up under the cover of their parent or their guardian, and whatever they see or whatever they experience, that's what they perceive as reality. So to
True.
them, yes, if the mother is cruel, they end up thinking that the world is cruel, and
Mm,
we are raising bored adults here, and it's very wrong. I think we should step up, and in our circles, when we are walking around, when we are hanging out with families and our friends, I think we should be able to identify, to distinguish if a child, there is this gut instincts apart from the actions of the child. Like Taiwo was saying, there are some things that are physical that you can actually see, like when a child is being beaten, you can actually see the wounds. But when it's emotional, it affects your self-esteem, it affects the child's right to perform in front of others. So I think we also need to have that consciousness of our guts feeling. Whatever your gut is telling you, I think you should push further and investigate what is it that is driving me to look into this matter. So I think, especially as women, we are regarded as the most loving human beings compared to men. So I think as women as well, it's our role in this society, not only within our homes and our friends and our neighbors, but extend the love out there to show that even if the world is cruel, we are always there. There's always someone open to discuss this, and there's always someone who's willing to understand and to stand up for these little people that cannot stand up for their own human rights. Taiwo, when it comes to reporting child abuse, let's say you are within your family circles, and then you identify that this child is being actually abused, how do you think we should approach it? Do we think we should speak to the child first? Do you think we should speak to the parent? And if we speak to the parent, are we not also risking the child being affected more? Or how do you think today, especially in this society, the information society that we are living in, how do you think we can tackle this reporting?
Okay, yeah, so I am speaking up on child abuse. I want to quickly share a personal experience. There was a time I went on a field training to a secondary school in my neighborhood. So obviously I introduced myself as a guidance counselor because I stayed with the kids for about 6 weeks, and there was this child. She was in GSS 1. She was in GSS 1 as at then, just like in high school. And she came to me. She's big, she has this big body. Gen Z now, they have their bodies are usually bigger than their ages. And she came to me and she told me her struggle of how she was being molested, like sexually assaulted by her uncle. Now, I never met this girl until that time. But the coincidence is that her mom was my classmate. We studied the same course. That's the girl's mother. But the irony is that this child can't talk to her mother about her mother's brother. Do you understand the scenario? But can rather talk to an outsider. And guess what? She pleaded with me not to tell anybody because she didn't want to look like the person who was going to bring conflict in between the
Exactly.
mom
Yeah,
and
you
in the family.
understand.
This child was about 13 years old then.
A teenager already.
13, yeah, she was a teenager already. And till now, I honestly didn't tell her mom. So I ended up telling some of my mates who a friend actually who told me that I should have defied all odds and told her mom because it would have helped the uncle stop. However, it would have helped the uncle
Mm.
stop. I don't have details of the child anymore. I don't know where she is. I don't know anything about her. And my heart
Oh.
reaches out to her that that form of abuse doesn't continue.
Exactly. And something that you will never forget, it will never go over. You never go
Exactly,
away.
yeah. So, but then when we are talking of reporting, I really want to state that this should serve as as a result of our proximity where we are currently, because it differs, location by location differs. What is applicable to us in Nigeria may not be applicable to you in South Africa. So, but I was
And Guy was there. I was reading this article today on BBC about
okay.
abducted girls in Nigeria. How do you guys deal with that trauma? Because for me, just reading about it, I get all these emotions and I just break down just by reading about it. And sometimes I'm like, what is it really like living in Nigeria where such things happen to young girls?
Yeah, so this is one of the cases we are talking about, right? Because girls are being abused. Children are being abused on a daily basis in Nigeria. On a daily, I know what I am talking about. Every day you get cases. That's even the one you can hear of on the media.
We
But at
read
the
about
same
them. We
time,
read
when
about my
we
ears are always
exactly
in
we
my
read
ears.
about exactly. But then I also came to discover that there are hotline centers that we can put calls through. There are advocacy centers for women's rights, children's rights. Gone are the days where children didn't have access to devices. But now in a snap of a finger, you can have access to a device, reach out to people. They can even keep you anonymous. There are hotlines. For instance, I got one. In fact, I tried one today out of the hotlines because I was preparing for this event, and because I know I'm going to be talking to a large grounds of persons from different locations. So in Nigeria, if you are going through any case of abuse, be it physical, be it emotional, be it neglect, any form of abuse, you can send the word abuse, ABUSE, to 6820. You can send abuse to 6820. Follow the prompts, and people are ready to come to your aid, keep you anonymous, make investigations till the time. Although I know that, and they are toll free. Yeah, they are toll free. Although I know that people who are affected are people who do not have a voice, and we need to consider that because they do not have a voice, they should not be blamed for any form of abuse. Yeah, because they are
Exactly.
underage, they shouldn't be blamed for any form of abuse. But if
Exactly.
you know anybody going through these things, and probably you're in a position of leadership where they come to talk to you as an adult, or you get to find out, just like Sandy mentioned, because we should use our instincts as adults. If you get to find out, please reach out to advocacy centers. They are everywhere, scattered around the states in Nigeria. There are NGOs who are interested in listening to you, keep you anonymous, like I said earlier, pending investigations, and we can take it off from there. I believe that when we begin to talk about abuse, uncles who abuse children, parents who abuse children, classmates who abuse children, if we begin to speak on, it's going to reach a larger society. And I am hopeful that it's going to meet the need, particularly for this subject we are currently discussing.
True, true. And unfortunately, we only have 4 minutes left on this show. It's just like we started a minute ago. So yeah, I want just to ask you, like, I know as adults, we are the ones that are responsible for this. And I think once one adult is responsible, one adult is doing abuse, I think I feel a sense of obligation to say, okay, I need to take action and I need to do something. How do we think, like if we have got 3 minutes left, so we should just briefly summarize this. How do you think we can actually prevent this? What do you have to say to a mother that she knows that she's currently abusing someone? It can be a foster child, a stepchild, or someone, or even their own children. What do you have to say to a mother who is currently abusing a child right now? And what do you have to say to a child who thinks is being abused right now and they're actually listening?
Unfortunately, 30 minutes is too little of a time to talk about this conversation. That is the truth.
Exactly.
But then, quickly, to any parent who is currently abusing a child, you should keep ringing at the back of your head that you are abusing a future, because abuse does
Now,
not
this is
end with
poison in the future's
it.
head.
Yeah, it doesn't end with one person. Violence goes from generation to generation. A person who didn't grow up with love cannot give out love. So you should
Thank you.
understand
You
that
cannot give
a
an
future is
empty
at
cup.
stake. Yeah, and then for the child who
Exactly.
is currently being abused, speak up, please. Speak up. You people are ready to listen. Just speak up.
Yes, and there are so many support groups like the ones that you're mentioning, Taiwo, earlier on. There are so many support groups. There are so many hotlines in different countries and different regions of the world. And I know UNICEF currently have about 54 of children's rights listed. And I know even though we could not discuss the macro aspects of it, I'm glad that we managed to tackle the important parts of it and what actually the micro aspects that we can actually handle and are actually within our reach. I know this was a very, very interesting but emotional subject, and unfortunately, because of time, we have to cut ourselves out. So, from myself, I think a woman who knows is currently abusing someone, I don't know what really to say, but I don't know. You just know that whatever you're doing to that child, really it will come back to you in one way or the other. And to a child that is being abused, I just want them to let them know that there's always a hope, there's always someone out there who's willing to listen, and there's always light within the world. You reach there one day, you get there, and you must always be hopeful and find help within the social media. We are living in an information society. You've got access to smartphones. We've got access to so many adults that are willing to be part of this. So don't hesitate, don't be silenced. It's time for you to speak up. So from me, Thandiwe, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being part of the show. It was my very first show, and I just want to send a special thank you to my team in the background. Joyce, thank you so much. I wouldn't have done this without you, my girl. Stan, Lennon, Paul, you guys are absolutely amazing, and thank you very much. I hope to see you again next week, where we'll be talking about women and gender abuse. So from me, that's it. Thank you very much. Hi guys, it's Thandiwe. Welcome to Baobab Chat. I just heard something that I wanted to share with you guys, reflecting back on 2020 and our generation in general. So I know that a lot of us now are being hijacked by the internet. We are so much onto social media. Everything, our lives, they revolve around social media. I just wanted to offer a words of encouragement to my fellow people and my fellow friends and everyone else who's on Baobab Chats. Do not let Facebook intimidate you, or the social statuses of everyone, and think that because you don't have what they have, or you don't have the same opportunities that they had, now you're failing behind. Keep hoping, keep up your dreams, and know that no one has it all. Everyone is suffering, everyone is going through things, and then they are just good at hiding it. That's why you don't see it. So just focus on your dreams, focus on your career, focus on what you think, what you know is important on the end goal. Don't be distracted by what you see on the social media, because everyone else is trying to show off what is best out of their lives. We don't go to social media to show our weaknesses, to show our failures, but we go there to show our strength. And at the end of the day, it ends up discouraging other people into thinking that they are not doing enough. Do not listen, do not be discouraged. Just focus on your dreams, focus on your goals, and associate yourself with the right people that can help you and encourage you and motivate you to become the person that